Modernity is, at its core, a profound philosophical awakening, the widespread adoption of humanism, fundamental equality, and rational thought. For India, these values were extracted over a century of profound subjugation and bloodshed, rather than through a gradual or peaceful evolution. By the 1700s, Mughal Empire authority collapsed. The subcontinent shattered into fractured, competing regional powers, like Mysore, Maratha, Bengal, and Awadh. Into this vacuum sailed the British East India Company. Arriving to trade, they quickly pivoted to exploit the fractured landscape. The arrival of this foreign corporation weaponized existing regional divisions, eventually forcing a shattered land to forge a single cohesive identity. The company engineered a multi-front assault on the agrarian economy. They imposed punishing land revenue systems and forced the cultivation of cash crops over basic food supplies. Rural populations were systematically drained of their wealth. Farmers who had worked the soil for generations faced absolute starvation and widespread desperation. The company then began rewriting local laws and imposing foreign socio-religious standards. This aggressive cultural intervention alienated the populace and directly threatened their core identity. When systemic exploitation strips away both human dignity and the basic means of survival, the calculation becomes simple: retaliate or perish. The sheer ruthlessness of British policy did what decades of local diplomacy could not. It gave a deeply fractured and diverse people a common enemy. By 1857, a century of suppressed fury across the fractured land finally detonated. This was the Maha Vidro, the Great Rebellion. For the first time, deposed kings, ordinary soldiers, and rural peasants fought shoulder to shoulder, attempting to reclaim their existence from corporate rule through force. The military response was absolute. British forces crushed the uprising with calculated devastation, leaving massive swaths of the country in physical ruin. Yet the defeat carried a profound psychological victory. The invincible aura of the British Empire was pierced, and the inherent fear of fighting the colonizer was permanently broken. The uprising shifted isolated regional grievances into a singular national struggle for survival and self-rule. Raw rebellion evolved into strategy. Over the ensuing decades, the movement built an ideological framework, eventually demanding Purna Swaraj, or complete independence. The founding of the Indian National Congress provided the infrastructure to channel this rising political nationalism into a unified front. The resistance operated across multiple fronts. Moderates petitioned for legislative reform, while extremists and armed revolutionaries escalated the pressure through direct action. Mahatma Gandhi restructured the movement by mobilizing the massive, previously untapped rural population, turning civil disobedience into an inescapable logistical nightmare for the state. The compounding pressure of revolutionary fire, sophisticated political intellect, and unrelenting mass mobilization fractured the foundation of British authority. Independence was achieved in 1947, but the triumph was immediately shadowed by the catastrophic human tragedy of partition. The arbitrary division of land, military resources, and administration forced the migration of millions, leaving them displaced, impoverished, and subjected to horrific violence. Amidst this chaos, the newly formed government had to deliver on the promises of equality and justice that fueled the freedom struggle. The founders faced the immediate pressure of drafting a legal framework capable of binding an intensely diverse society together. Securing independence provided the foundation, but the subsequent work of building a democratic state required navigating the immediate wreckage of empire. The new constitution institutionalized the core tenets of the resistance. It legally eradicated archaic discrimination and firmly guaranteed basic human rights. From there, the state launched aggressive efforts to build a self-reliant economic infrastructure and establish a sovereign stance on the global stage. Every administrative body, every societal protection, and every democratic institution operating in India today traces its lineage directly back to those 19th and 20th century battles. Modernity is a continuously maintained commitment to humanism, built upon the specific sacrifices recorded throughout this history. A nation that fails to understand the bloody crucible of its own history loses the ability to safeguard its future.